Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It's Nigel once again, and this is going to be another wrestling review. So, if you're watching when it goes up, then by the time this goes up, I will have reviewed the last event of 2024 for NXT, that being Deadline. So if you haven't already, go check out that review. Starting last year and then into this year, we've been looking at some other NXT events. Now, NXT is something that I didn't really get into until later on in my time as a wrestling fan. I think around 2019, 2020 is when I really started to get into NXT. Right as the third brand black and gold era was starting to wind down. And of course, NXT has had several events and really established itself as a third brand now, how more so going back into kind of developmental origins. But I decided before the year was over, I would take things back to where it all began. I am talking about NXT Arrival, which, fun fact, was actually the first event and that aired on the WWE Network. It took place on February 27th, and the WWE Network officially launched 3 days before this event, and so this event was kind of the guinea pig for the WWE Network, and it definitely showed. But as always, I'm not professional, not a professional wrestling reviewer, analyst, or anything like that. Just a man enjoys a good time, and I definitely had a good time with this event, I must say. Being able to see where NXT was then, and a lot of the stars are seeing where they were then versus where they are now in the grand scheme of things in pro wrestling. Most not in WWE anymore, but to kind of see where from humble beginnings, essentially. This was a couple years into the relaunch, the rebirth, where NXT was no longer game show format, where instead it became more wrestling oriented, more developmental, and everything, and them finally getting their events, and subsequently seeing all the takeovers from here. There are a lot of legendary NXT takeovers in that time period. But without further ado, let's get right into it. If you've seen these reviews of mine before, you kind of know this works. If you haven't, I'm going to be talking about what I like and dislike about each match. I'm going to go match by match. So starting with the opener, or actually, there are a couple preliminary things. For starters, there is a dark match between Mason Ryan and Sylvester Lafort. Heard that one didn't make air, but the other thing is that it's time to address the elephant in the room. Those of you who are familiar with NXT Arrival are probably literally shouting at your phone or computer or TV or however you're watching it, waiting for me to talk about it. So let's talk about it. You remember how I said the W Network was pretty much in its infancy? Just like an infant may do, it crashed out. The feed had dropped a couple times. A lot of people who watched it back then had cited some feed issues. Now, thankfully, they uploaded the event in its entirety on the network without the cuts and everything. They actually uploaded part 1 and part 2, but part 1 is like the whole thing essentially, and then part 2 is pretty much the opener and then the main event. But because I was able to watch it in that format, doesn't really affect me. Obviously, I was able to watch it just fine, but it was at least worth mentioning. Yeah, for as awesome as the W Network would wind up becoming for a lot of people, it had some rough patches starting off. There was definitely some things that needed to be ironed out, unfortunately, with the W Network. But nevertheless, getting into the show proper, and getting the dark match out of the way, as in the opener, Sami Zayn took on Cesaro. Now, this feud essentially was about respect. Heck, more specifically, Sami Zayn wanting to earn Cesaro's respect. These two had waged wars in NXT, had some phenomenal matches in NXT. And so Sami Zayn previously had not, I believe, had yet to defeat Cesaro one-on-one. If I am not mistaken, to make sure, yeah. So okay. So he did score an upset win over Cesaro, but Cesaro then beat him in the 2 out of 3 falls match. So this is essentially the rubber match, and for an opener, these two absolutely brought it. Phenomenal match to open up the show, and even before we get into the rest of it, this already is going to be the match of the night. Like, this match was fantastic. Both men absolutely brought it. You saw the best from both guys. Also, shout out to Sami Zayn's gear, having all like the flags of all the different countries and everything where he competed, and that's actually the gear that he wore in WWE2K15 that will come out later on that year. So gotta give the extra nod to that. But both guys absolutely brought out the best in their repertoire, and brought out the best in each other's repertoire as well. Both men just absolutely killed it here. This match was a whole lot of fun. Ultimately, Cesaro putting away Sami Zayn, but no amount of words of this justice. Definitely, if you don't watch any other match from the show, definitely go watch this match, because this match was an absolute just chef's kiss. Yes, and afterwards, both men do shake hands. They do show each other that respect. So Sami Zayn had indeed earned Cesaro's respect. Heck, they shook hands, they hugged. So so props to that. Had good old fashioned sportsmanship, and not in the MJF way. But yeah, so really phenomenal match. But next up, Mojo Rawley took on C.J. Parker. Now, C.J. Parker, the future Juice Robinson. I also kind of hit something a bit silly here. I looked at the card and looked at how many of these people who are now in AEW. Who most of these people aren't in WWE anymore, but I want to see how many of these people are in AEW now, and there was at least one in every match, which is kind of interesting. So kind of dumb, silly thing to do there, but nevertheless, as C.J. Parker are kind of doing the heel eco warrior gimmick, kind of the gimmick that Daniel Bryan would do. Later on when he was the new Daniel Bryan, won the WWE Championship in 2018 through late 2018 into early 2019. That kind of gimmick, but of course, years before Daniel Bryan had adopted that gimmick. But C.J. Parker having the gimmick here, going against Mojo Rawley. This match essentially a glorified squash match. Like this one essentially there to put Mojo Rawley over. C.J. Parker does get in some offense in the match. But ultimately, it's pretty much a showcase for Mojo here, and Mojo does pick up the win. And like I said, at the previous match, at Cesaro / Claudio Castagnoli, and C.J. Parker would also go on to become Juice Robinson and everything in AEW, and of course New Japan and everything like that. But yeah, this match just kind of, it's kind of like it's a match that was a means to an end, and so I guess I can kind of respect it in that way, but otherwise not a whole lot of substance here. But next up in tag team action, the Ascension having an open challenge for the NXT Tag Team Championships. The Ascension, the longest reigning NXT Tag Team Champions, in this reign that they had, a record that they still hold. I looked, and they still hold the record for singular longest NXT title reign. As for like longest combined reigns, I believe it is the Undisputed Era, if I'm not mistaken. But as for individual reigns, it is still the Ascension, and which is surprising. But their opponents are are as I look up here, their opponents are too cool. Well, that being Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty 2 Hottie. Sadly, one of the last times they would team up and let me look at list of NXT tag team champions and then where is it? I just saw it. So combined reign. So the one reign for the Ascension, and it was 364 days, but only 343 recognized by WE, and then with 3 combined reigns, the Undisputed Era had a combined 606 days. Although the amount recognized by WE is 550 days, but nevertheless, back to this match. They battled Too Cool. Like I said, one of the last times they would team up. His Too Cool, unfortunately, Grandmaster Sexay, aka Ryan Christopher, would end up passing away. After a suicide in prison a few years later, which is pretty sad, pretty heartbreaking to think about. But Too Cool also had competed on Old School Raw earlier that year. I believe that's when they teamed up with Rikishi. But Too Cool who doing their thing here, and Sky Zuhadi even coming out bald this time around. And Sky Zuhadi, this one counts as well because he's a trainer for AEW. But this match was okay. This one also kind of a glorified squash. Essentially, the Ascension pretty much mowing through Too Cool to retain the championships, but kind of just a fun tag team match in that regard. It was cool to see Too Cool. I imagine if I was watching at that time, it would have been awesome to see them. But yeah, the Ascension picking up the win here. The Ascension, I forgot. You almost forget the Ascension were treated like a big deal at this point in NXT. A far cry from what would happen to them on the main roster, or essentially getting jobbed out pretty much on the fast track to Jobberville, stemming from that legend segment in, I believe, 2015, where they were pretty much called out for being Road Warriors 2.0, which, yeah, the look is definitely there, but don't say the quiet part out loud. But yeah, sadly, didn't quite have a super big level of success on the main roster, which is unfortunate because they were like a big deal here in NXT. But I guess it is what it is. But next up for the NXT Women's Championship, Paige defends against Emma. So this one also kind of about respect, but also these two women not necessarily liking each other. So translate here. They kind of try to play it off as a bit of a friendly rivalry, but admittedly it does. Either it's a little disjointed or I just accidentally missed it. But these two women, I think, put on a pretty solid match here. It is the third longest match of the night. It is the shortest of all actually, it's the second shortest of the championship matches on the night. But I think Paige and Emma did really well here. Ultimately, Paige putting away Emma with the Paige tap out, which it wasn't called just yet. I think that was when the move was still new. I don't think they really knew what to call it yet. Paige would eventually, of course, go up to the main roster. She would, after WrestleMania, she would beat AJ Lee on her first night to win the Divas Championship, and the rest for her is history. And she, of course, is now in AEW, who was part of the Outcast. They seemingly split though. So pretty decent match, and they show respect as well. And I think the story conveyed that Emma is fun-loving and everything. This is before she kind of turned heel and revamped her image and kind of became the look she is more known for nowadays. But here, fun-loving, serious in the ring, and Paige, of course, the champion. And but yes, a really solid match. But next up is supposed to be Tyler Breeze versus Xavier Woods, which It's supposed to be Tyler Breeze. It's supposed to be Tyler Breeze for Xavier Woods. Which interesting that this is one of the only matches I can think of that I've seen with Xavier Woods pre New Day, where he's coming out to the Bros Clay theme. He had his gear and everything, his NXT gear. But they are and Tyler Breeze. I think early version of his theme song. He doesn't have the theme song he's more known for, but as they're getting into the match, they are attacked by Alexander Rusev, the future Miro in AEW. So Rusev pretty much takes them out, and this is before he just went by Rusev. This is still when he had his first name, that being Alexander Rusev. Lana comes out with him as well. They kind of promo this essentially to put over Rusev, so kind of a non-match here, as both guys pretty much just get beat up. But in the main event for the NXT Championship, if Bo Dallas defends against Adrian Neville. So these two have had a rivalry on NXT. He warring for the NXT Championship. I believe it was Neville that Bo Dallas took the title from, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just trying to read here. Did not take the title from Adrian Neville, but they kind of been going back and forth feuding for some time now, and this one's gonna be a ladder match. And actually, because of the ladder match, out comes Shawn Michaels. Ironic that nowadays Shawn Michaels is pretty much in charge of the NXT brand, but here he wasn't quite in that position yet, and still had his hair. So Shawn comes out, kind of cuts a little mini promo. I didn't try to do John Cena thing of flew in front of my face, but Shawn kind of cutting a mini promo here, kind of talking about the ladder match and what it means to him, which it makes sense for him to do. Of course, he was involved in the first ladder match with Razor Ramon. He shows up with the NXT Championship, hangs it in the balance, and both men come out for the match. And this match was pretty fun as well. Both guys, I think, did really well. Held some cool spots, especially from Adrian Neville, and this back when Adrian Neville was still called Adrian Neville, and not just Neville or Pac in AEW, who, of course, to kind of bring that full circle. And this was years before Bo Dallas became Uncle Howdy, but this match still pretty fun for the most part. Adrian Neville picking up the win, grabbing the title to win here, and just a fun ladder match. You can't really go wrong with a ladder match, although Lord knows they've tried in the past. But so just a kind of fun ladder match to close off the show. I think this match also had some feet cutouts as well, but really solid match there. Kind of some scary moments with the ladder, and I do like how there's not an overabundance of ladders. They kind of use it how Shawn Michaels and Razor use the ladders, where it's not quite about the spots, it's more about the psychology with the ladders, which I think of the two, spots aren't bad, but the psychology with the ladder is pretty cool to see. So in a way they're also, and it kind of ties Shawn into there, or in a way they're paying homage to that match in that regard, but ultimately it is Neville who gets the win, and really great match. But that is going to do it for Arrive. They did, and also before I forget, Stephanie McMahon did present the NXT Women's Championship as well. Hell, she kind of got a speech in as well, and Triple H did kick off the show. Really hyping up this new era of NXT, and seeing the maiden voyage here was pretty cool to see for NXT. As for the strongest and weakest match of the night, the strongest, definitely the opener. The opener was a whole lot of fun. Both Cesaro and Sami Zayn, definitely, he absolutely brought it. As for the weakest, technically, he in terms of proper match, there's two different avenues you can go. You could go Tyler Breeze and Xavier Woods, because that match technically didn't happen, and it's only technically 35 seconds long. It was pretty much there for Rusev, but I'm not really counting that because it's not really a definitive match per se. Hey, but as for proper matches, I guess I'd go with Mojo Rawley versus CJ Parker. But nevertheless, that is going to do it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on post notifications. Every time I upload a video, so you can see it as soon as it drops. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts on NXT Arrival, my review of NXT Arrival. Do you like NXT Arrival? Do you like my review of NXT Arrival? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.